Keir Starmer spent months calling angry British voters extremists. Said it in speeches, said it in interviews, said it while Labour's numbers were collapsing in real time. He thought branding people far right would scare them back into silence. It did the opposite. Then thousands flooded the streets at the Unite the Kingdom rally, and suddenly the Prime Minister of Britain started talking about facial recognition, crackdowns, and surveillance warnings like a man watching control slip through his fingers. Now Labour MPs are turning on each other. Cabinet members are resigning. Reform UK is surging. And Starmer is being accused of treating ordinary protesters like a national security threat because he cannot handle the backlash anymore. Watch this interview because one commentator just said out loud what millions of voters are starting to think. Keir Starmer is panicking, and the political establishment knows it.
Keir Starmer might do some soul searching and actually work out why are the voters leaving us and going to Reform UK? Is it maybe immigration? Except none of them talked about immigration. None of them mentioned immigration. Instead, Keir Starmer gave his kind of landmark speech to try and save his premiership and started talking about rejoining the EU and started talking about digital ID. And then he labelled everyone who was going to protest in the rally on Saturday, the Unite the Kingdom march, as being far right. And so this is the exact opposite of what you would expect from someone who has their finger on the pulse. And what they see is when they look at the rise of Reform UK, they don't look to understand the voters. They're so self-righteous that they see the rise of reform as being some kind of malignancy, some immorality in society that they need to stamp out. And that's what's really been going on. There's a tremendous sense of frustration with this, with Keir Starmer, that he just doesn't get it, and none of his Labour MPs do. But despite that, over 100 MPs have called for him to stand down. Cabinet members have resigned. But despite having 400 MPs, the Labour Party are pinning all their hopes on a person called Andy Burnham, who's not even an MP. He was the mayor of Greater Manchester. And now what is going on currently is a really, really serious, hotly contested by-election where Andy Burnham is up against Reform UK. And it's going to be really tight and really exciting.
I'm interested in this Unite the Kingdom phenomenon. The pictures we saw last weekend were amazing, just the number of people out there, and yet, like you just in a very negative light, and the everyday people are saying we've had enough, we're rising, and people who don't normally take to the streets to protest are protesting.
Yeah, I think your comparison with Brexit is an apt one. I think, look, Keir Starmer's right about one thing. He said there is a battle for the soul of Britain, and that battle is this. There is one camp that says Britain is a diverse country which belongs to everyone. And there's another camp which is what I'm part of and Reform UK is part of, which is to say that Britain has a host culture. It has a host heritage and a host history that everyone else should assimilate and integrate into. And so that is a dividing line that is going on. And the Unite the Kingdom March is really a representative of people, not just a white demographic, from ethnic minorities as well, coming together to say Britain has a culture, it has an identity. And so they're marching in solidarity to make the establishment aware that they need to wake up to this fact that mass immigration and the lack of integration is destroying the soul of this country. Now, Keir Starmer, he watched as pro-Palestinian marches went on week after week, shouting "Globalise the Intifada" from the river to the sea. He watched as anti-Semitic attacks were carried out on the streets of Britain, and he did virtually nothing. But as soon as he heard about the Unite the Kingdom march, he was there talking about we're going to crack down on this facial recognition. He was releasing videos on social media saying you better behave yourself. He was having a nervous breakdown. And so it's fascinating to watch the two-tier Keir Starmer in action. And he's very much worried about the kind of solidarity that is being shown at the grassroots.
Keir Starmer is completely panicking right now, and this interview just exposed how badly Labour is collapsing behind the scenes. A former Reform UK candidate went on live television and basically described a prime minister who has totally lost control of the country, lost control of his own party, and is now lashing out at ordinary British citizens because he cannot handle the size of the backlash against him. Watch this because it gets brutal very quickly. Starmer was already coming off disastrous election losses, but according to this exchange, what really terrified Labour was the massive turnout at the Unite the Kingdom rally. And instead of asking why thousands of people are suddenly marching in the streets, instead of listening to voters abandoning Labour in huge numbers, Starmer reportedly decided to brand the movement as far-right and threaten crackdowns using facial recognition and surveillance tactics. That is not the behavior of a confident leader. That is a government in full panic mode. And then it got worse. The commentator flat out said, Reform UK has completely decimated Labour in its own heartlands and accused Starmer of caring more about power than the country itself. But the most damaging part was the claim that Labour MPs still refuse to even talk about the issue driving voters away in the first place: immigration. According to this exchange, while Reform UK is hammering borders, sovereignty, and national identity every single day, Labour's response has been talking about rejoining the EU and pushing digital ID systems while calling frustrated citizens extremists. That disconnect is exactly why people are turning on them. And you could hear the frustration building throughout the interview because this is starting to look less like normal political opposition and more like a full-scale revolt against the British establishment. The comparison to Brexit was not accidental. They literally described this as Brexit 2.0, ordinary people flooding the streets, while media elites and political insiders try to dismiss them as dangerous or immoral instead of addressing the actual concerns being raised. Then came the moment that really exposed Starmer's weakness. The commentator pointed out that pro-Palestinian marches had been allowed to continue for months with barely any response from the government. But the second the Unite the Kingdom rally gained momentum, Starmer suddenly started releasing warning videos, talking about crackdowns and acting like the country was under threat. And that is where the two-tier Keir narrative exploded, because critics are now accusing him of applying completely different standards depending on who is protesting. And honestly, the nervous breakdown line was not even subtle. They were openly laughing about how rattled Starmer appears right now, because every move he makes is starting to look reactive, defensive, and desperate. Over 100 MPs reportedly wanting him gone. Cabinet resignations, Labour scrambling for replacements, poll numbers collapsing, Reform UK surging, massive rallies in the streets. This is not a government projecting strength. This looks like a political establishment realizing the public mood has shifted against them and having absolutely no idea how to stop it. Drop a comment and tell me one word to describe Keir Starmer's reaction to the Unite the Kingdom rally, because right now Labour looks completely terrified of the movement growing right in front of them.